What's up, everybody? Thanks as always for supporting the show. It would mean a lot to me if you would take a second to scroll down and hit that subscribe button to the Hoops Tonight YouTube channel, and then follow me on social media on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter so you guys don't miss any of our content over the course of this season. All right, let's talk some basketball. All right, CP3 to the Spurs. I love this move because it accomplishes two things. It gives Victor Wembanyama a high-level ball handler to make things easier for him on offense. To give you an idea, Victor only got 2.5 roll man possessions per game last year. That's the same amount as Rudy Gobert, stone hands Rudy Gobert, and who doesn't play with passers, right? And that's half as many as the star bigs at the top of the league, guys like Anthony Davis, guys like Joel Embiid, because those guys play with high-level ball handlers who consistently set them up with those opportunities. Here's a crazy stat for you guys. Victor only logged 2.2 cut possessions per game. Those are easy feeds around the rim for quick finishes, right? Trace Jackson Davis of the Warriors, who played less than 17 minutes per game, logged more cut possessions per game than Victor Wembanyama in about half as many minutes. Guess who was the primary guard for most of those Trace Jackson Davis minutes? Chris Paul. So, is Chris Paul going to make the Spurs into a championship contender? Obviously not. But he's just going to allow them to function more like a normal basketball team on offense. He's going to generate those higher quality opportunities for Victor Wembanyama that most of his peers at the position get. And again, the big thing is, in the long run, they are eventually going to have a star ball handler next to Victor. And we don't know who it's going to be, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But he's eventually going to play alongside this type of guy. Why not let him get some reps learning how to do that in the short term? While the second thing this accomplishes, maintaining flexibility, because it's a one-year deal. A lot of the ball handlers that were available to the Spurs this summer didn't make a lot of sense. DeJounte Murray isn't good enough to be your primary ball handler. Trae Young is good enough, but he comes with a lot of other issues, as we know, attitude issues, defense issues. Donovan Mitchell just re-upped in Cleveland, so he's not an option. Darius Garland's kind of an interesting option in terms of the fit, but I don't think he's good enough to be the best ball handler on a championship team. Paul George was too old. Brandon Ingram isn't good enough either. This is the summer for fringe stars to be hunted by contenders, not for young teams to look for foundational pieces. And so this, for instance, we just talked about the Thunder. This is why the Thunder went for Hartenstein instead of making some sort of other deal. They're probably looking at it like, we don't view Lauri Markkanen as a guy on a max contract that is worth it in the context of Jalen Williams and Shea. We would rather wait for a different type of player, right? So Hartenstein, they have the cap flexibility to do it. That was them kind of making the same type of decision that the Spurs are talking about. There weren't a lot of foundational type of talent available this summer to try to go after. CP3 gives the Spurs another year to wait things out. And maybe Devin Vassell takes another step forward. He had his best scoring volume and efficiency year last year. Maybe he takes a step forward and looks like he could be that guy in the long run. Stephon Castle, who the Spurs drafted at the top of the first round, maybe he learns how to shoot this year, and maybe that kind of turns into a guy that the Spurs project as a ball handler. Or maybe a guy becomes available in the trade market, and the Spurs can jump in there and try to make a move. And the one thing is, Victor is so talented already that he applies more timeline pressure, in the sense that you don't want to wait 5 years to be good, because Victor could be a top 10 player literally next year. And there's a certain pressure that comes with that, right? But I thought this was a savvy move by the Spurs. It just, again, is going to give them that flexibility to wait out a better ball handling option while giving Victor at least a facsimile of that to practice with for this season. And most importantly, it's going to make the Spurs more fun to watch. The Spurs were like watching college basketball last year. Just the ball handling capability was so low, it made them really difficult to watch. Victor Wembanyama was the only saving grace of them as a television product. Getting a CP3 out there and having them look more organized on offense will help a lot. Hey, Jason, big Mavs fan here. Are there any minimum signings out there that could move the needle for them defensively the way that Derrick Jones Jr. did? I was thinking Dennis Smith Jr. If not, schematically, how do you think the Mavs can orient their offense to compete with the likes of Oklahoma City and Boston? I did a massive deep dive into the Dallas offense and what I expect it to look like in the future in yesterday's show. So make sure you guys get to a little bit further back in my feed yesterday when we were breaking down the Klay Thompson signing. I went into excruciating detail on the offensive fit, so you guys can find that stuff there. Other two-way wings that they can look at that I looked at in the free agent market for veteran minimum type of guys: Alec Burks, Caleb Martin, Gary Trent Jr., Dennis Smith Jr. Some of those guys might end up getting MLEs at other places, but they're at least potential veteran minimum guys, and they're guys that they can keep an eye on. What's your favorite PRS model? I think the Silver Sky, the Paul Reed Smith makes guitars. I think that the Silver Sky is my favorite model in terms of it's just the easiest to pick up and play. It's basically their version of a Fender Stratocaster. It's their signature model for John Mayer. But I think my favorite one that I own is probably my Hollow Body 2 Piezo. It's that purple one that you've seen behind me sometimes. That one just has like a lot of versatility because it can do acoustic guitar stuff and it can do electric guitar stuff. And the 5815 humbuckers that they have on that guitar just sound absolutely beautiful. So that one I'm going to say is my favorite overall, but easiest to play, easiest to pick up and play in terms of like the tactile nature of it. I'd go with the Silver Sky. What's the ceiling on this Magic team for the upcoming season? Could we see an OKC 2023-2024 type leap? So looking at their offseason, they upgraded Gary Harris to Kentavious Caldwell-Pope while also re-signing Gary Harris. They brought back Goga Bitadze. They brought back Mo Wagner this morning. So they're basically running it back with an upgrade of a starting spot. I have to look at their draft picks. I didn't even take a look at that before I pulled this up. But the East in general is going to be better next year. So even though I expect Orlando to be better, I still kind of think they're going to be right in that 4-5 slot again. And I think they're probably going to lose in the first round to one of Philly, Milwaukee, or New York. I think those are the clear top four, right? Boston, Philly, Milwaukee, New York in some order, with Boston at number one. I don't think Orlando's ready to leap into that group yet this year. That said, I think they're going to be a huge pain in the ass. I think they're going to win a lot of regular season games. I think they're going to be right up there in the mix. But I think they're still quite a ways away. They need so much improvement in offensive skill. And Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is going to really help as just a better version of Gary Harris. But I still think that doesn't alleviate the main concern, which is there's just not enough perimeter shooting ability in their starting lineup. Now, if Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero both take substantial leaps as shooters, then we can have another conversation. I mean, it's just hard to believe at this point. What do you see as the next step in Derek Lively's development? Is adding the three-point shot realistic? I think it's less about the three-point shot, even though I do think that Derek Lively has that capability. It's more about just becoming the quintessential five-out fulcrum. I think Dallas is going to shift to more five-out movement next year. I talked about it a lot in yesterday's show, and there's going to be a lot of pressure on Derek Lively to be a decision-maker and a playmaker in that role. And there was a report I saw this morning from Tim McMahon that they're leaning towards putting Derek Lively full-time into the starting lineup, which is another thing I talked about yesterday as an indicator of them shifting more towards five-out. So like that I think is going to be his main area of development, is being more of like a fulcrum. Great guy for him to watch film of would be Isaiah Hartenstein. That's a player that I think he could learn a lot from.